Hello again. Linda from Curtin Creative Gallery, reading more of the chapters of The Spending of a Life's Breath by Amanda Grace Windward. We're on chapter 10, titled Roger Leaves Me. At the end of March, Roger, the husband of my youth, left me, our home, and our 13 children to have a midlife escape with Marcelina, a woman, from work. He left us suddenly and unexpectedly. I had no idea he was capable of such a betrayal. He walked out one day and barely looked back. He left at a time I needed him the most after I had a terrible accident and making it difficult for me to deal with my father's illness, eventual death, shortly after. I tried to put Dad ahead of my problem and called Roger and begged him to visit my father one last time before he died, and he did. I told my father not to worry about Roger leaving me. I was sure he would be coming back home as soon as he thought about things or got whatever was bothering him out of his system, and my dad was able to say goodbye to Roger with love. I didn't understand what was happening to Roger, but I thought our life together was too good and solid for this to continue to happen, so I believed he wouldn't truly leave for long. Dad lived just 3 more months. He died at home with my mother and was surrounded by his loving family on June 29, 2000. Shortly after Dad died that day, Mom got a phone call finding out that one of Dad's dearest and closest friends, Ellie, who had just been up to see him in the hospital, died suddenly and unexpectedly at the very same moment that Dad did. I wonder what he thought when she joined him that day at Heaven's Gate, and I wonder if her husband, Al, also Dad's friend, was surprised to see them both coming through the pearly gates arm in arm together to join him in heaven, hand in hand to join him, just like old times. My husband Roger did not come to my father's funeral, which was a surprise to me because he had been like a father to him. Roger said it was out of consideration for me. But how could I ever believe that to be true? I believe after what he already was doing to me and our children walking out on our life together, I could see he was walking out of much more than just us. Roger was leaving his young children when we all needed him. I had begged him to come home and at least sit with Warren and Jack, come to the funeral of my father, and just sit with Warren and Jack because I had to sit up front with my sisters and they could use their father's emotional support through this sadness. But he didn't come. It made it difficult for them and for me to worry about how they were feeling losing their father and grandfather at the same time at age 11 and 13, my 2 youngest. I know I was devastated when I lost my grandfather when I was 12 years old. It was very difficult for me. Now, I was losing my father and my husband and trying to heal and recover from the accident when I fell from the second floor landing in our unfinished home down to the first floor foyer, all because my husband kept putting up a rail, which could have prevented that from happening, despite my several pleas for him to do so before one of the children fell. After all, I had almost fallen twice before this. The accident was very bad. It left me with injuries to several areas of my body, broken ribs, both hands. I was knocked out cold, receiving a severe concussion, they said, which was still causing me much pain. dizziness, and confusion. The physical limitations during what seemed to me to be a much too slow recovery was very debilitating. I was trying very hard to be patient, and with determination, I felt I could get through anything swiftly because God was by my side, cheering me on. But things seemed different this time, and life seemed to be a bit more difficult. I was reaching for my husband during this difficult time for help, and for some strange reason, he was not being there for me or for our home that he had insisted on rebuilding himself after our house fire. He chose to do it this way rather than hire people to build it with the insurance money we got for our house fire, because he said, I've built houses for other people. Now it's time for me to build one for myself. So we set out to do this as a family together experience, which was giving them the opportunity to gain skills, the children, to gain skills that would help them in their own adult lives. And the house was built up to only a shell, but the most difficult part done. The rest would be the fun frosting of the home, like the siding, the roof shingles, and the sheetrock inside, and painting the walls and the floors and the trim. But things seemed to stop after my accident because suddenly we got very busy helping Roger's friends from work, Philip and his wife, Marcelina. At first, and then, when she kicked Philip out and filed for divorce, she seemed to grow very needy of Roger and his time, which resulted in him leaving our 30-year marriage and taking off with Marcelina, Philip's wife. I soon found I was not as strong as I thought I once was. I saw I was beginning to lose control of my whole world, and this scared me to death. I felt like I was sucked up in a whirlwind ride that held me pinned against the sides, unable to move, with my hands tied, my head swirling, my eyes screaming out loudly in terror. How was I going to hold on and get through this for my family? I knew in my heart that I needed to lean on God to be strong for me, for my family especially, my mother and my children, just like I was able to do many times in the past 30 years when a crisis arose. But this time things seemed so different. It was like an evil cloud covered us and pulled us out of the path of God's light into darkness. Life did not seem real to me, and I couldn't grab hold. I began to shake uncontrollably, trembling, and would not stop, but grew and stayed with me day and night. It was taking over my whole body. I begged and pleaded to God, crying, God, what should I do? But I could not hear an answer. I began to feel so very afraid and alone and hurt and angry all at once. To go on each day, each step was so difficult. I had to begin singing with clenched teeth. Put one foot in front of the other, and soon you'll be walking out the door. Or else I couldn't move. I was able to create this tool from a memory of Christmas, the Christmas movie Rudolph and the Abominable Snowman. When the snowman sang that song in order to get himself out of the cave, it helped a little, thank goodness, because otherwise I would not have been able to get out of bed or stop crying to do the daily tasks I needed to do to survive. I had to believe God would eventually give me direction and help us find the right path to move forward. I felt so helpless. I knew it was all beyond my control now. I hoped that if I could just be patient, God would set things straight. Meanwhile, the trembling got worse and worse until it gripped my days and my nights, and I could not even swallow. That's when I stopped eating. It hurt to swallow. I was choked up all the time. Thank goodness I could get down sips of water and a vitamin mix shake, or I would not have been able to go on and do what I needed to do in my days, like get out of bed, get to work, and try to take care of my family, the house, and the bills. The whole house and everyone in it were so terribly unhappy. I lost 33 pounds in 33 days before I finally was able to begin to eat some more solid foods. Amazingly, in all that time, I did not so much as catch a cold. I just did a heck of a lot of screaming into my pillow and carrying out whenever I could, as I stayed fixed with each trembling, difficult moment, continuing to force myself to put one foot in front of another as the days went by, turning into weeks and then months. So let the journals begin. The journals are my therapy, suggested by my therapist. And thank God she suggested it, because I never could have made it through without some sort of outlet for my fear, anger, hate, and confusion. And so here begin with my personal and often crazy journal entries and notes, letters, and screams on paper that I poured my terrorized, mixed up life with brain injury and troubled feelings into, in just to hold on to my sanity and make it through a time in my life when there didn't seem to be much sanity or anything resembling the world as I once knew it. Note, a reminder. At the end of March 2000, Roger, the husband of my youth, left me to be with a woman he worked with who had never had any children and had just divorced her husband, a man who worked with them, Philip Decker. Roger and I had been married 30 plus years and were in the middle of growing a life together with most of our 13 children and building a larger home for us all. We had biological and adopted children. Some were Roger's relatives, and we had Gilly, our foster child. We had so many Gillies in our family, my father, my brother, my biological son, and now this child from my cousin. 2 of our children recently got wed and began their own new young families, and we were grandparents. Roger and I both came from large families, so this wasn't anything new to us. My parents were a big part of our lives and wonderful to my husband, treating him like a son ever since he was 15 years old. They helped him through many problems and saved his butt many times, financially, especially with the IRS. It was very hurtful for them now to see him leaving their daughter and their grandchildren. He was a huge disappointment right now, but they still loved him. When he left us, it was sudden and unexpected. No one could believe he was capable of such a dishonorable betrayal. He just walked out one day and barely looked back, even though he knew his father-in-law was dying of cancer. His leaving at a time I needed him most made it difficult for me to deal with my father's illness and death. I tried to put Dad ahead of my problems, and I called Roger and begged him to visit my father before he died, and he did. And my dad was able to say goodbye to him with love. I told my father not to worry about Roger leaving me. I was sure he would change his mind, and be back, but if not, I would be fine, not to worry. But I could feel inside I was beginning to crumple. I didn't understand what was happening to Roger, but I thought our life together was good, and so I wanted to believe he wouldn't truly leave us forever. Maybe he just needs time to think, to remember that what was important to him. Dad had just 3 months of life at home with us after the surgery, and after a swift decline, we lost him on June 29th, 2000. Mom got a phone call after he passed, and we were all surprised to find out that his dearest friend, Aunt Ellie, died suddenly and unexpectedly at the very same moment Dad did. I wonder what he thought when she joined him that day, and I wonder if Uncle Al was surprised to see them coming hand in hand to join him and the others that passed before them, just like old times. My husband Roger did not come to the funeral. He said it was out of his consideration for me. But how could I ever believe that to be true after walking out on our life together and his children when we needed him so? I was losing my father and my husband at the same time. I had been struggling to overcome the results of the injuries I had suffered from the terrible fall from the second floor landing in our home to the foyer floor. The rail had not been put up yet in the home we were building, and the accident left me with injuries to my body and head with great pain and suffering. I was trying very hard to be patient about my remaining symptoms in what seemed like a much too slow recovery for me. I usually felt I could get through anything because God was by my side, but it was very difficult this time. Suddenly, like the accident, reaching for a rail that was not there and should have been, I reached for my husband during this difficult time, and he is not there. I found I was losing control of my whole world, and I was scared to death. I felt like I was sucked up into a whirlwind that held me pinned against the sides, unable to move, with my hands tied, my head swirling, and my eyes screaming out loud in terror. How was I going to hold on and get through this? I knew in my heart that I needed to lean on God to be strong for my family, especially my mother and children, like I was able to do many times in the past. But this time, things were different. It was like an evil cloud covering us and pulled us out of the path of God's light. Life did not seem real to me, and I couldn't seem to shake the uncontrollable tremble that was taking over my whole body. I begged God, what should I do? But I could not hear the answer. So to go on, I kept telling myself, put one foot in front of the other, and soon you'll be walking out the door. I had to believe God would eventually work things out for all of us, because somehow I knew it was beyond my control, if I could just be patient. But meanwhile, the trembling got worse and worse until it gripped my days and my nights, and I could not even swallow. That's when I stopped eating. Thank goodness I could get down a vitamin mix that I put in a little cup of water each day, or I would not have been able to go on. I lost 33 pounds in 33 days before I was finally able to begin to eat, but did not so much as catch cold during that time. I just trembled as I put one foot in front of the other. March 2000, March 1st to the 5th. These are my journal entries. My son Walden was invited to go with his oldest brother, Luke, and his wife, Sarah, and her younger sister to a church youth group week at Blueberry Hill, snow tubing. I asked if Warren and Jack could go stating it would be so good for them to share a good Christian event with their older brothers. They were going through so much. Eventually, Luke said they could. Unfortunately, things did not go so well up there for Warren and Jack there that week. They said they felt left out, like they were not really wanted there. Jack even said he felt he was ignored, excluded, and picked on because when he made the mistake of walking up the hill after tubing down it instead of waiting for the ride, he said he was told he could not participate anymore. I understand the rules may have been for safety reasons and important to try and enforce, but I would have hoped where Jack was new to the group, they could have found a second chance or given him something else to do besides watch everyone else having a good time and him being left alone. March 8th, Warren's 14th birthday. I took him and Jack out for lunch and a movie. March 11th, my husband Roger and our youngest sons Andy, Charlie, and Warren moved 4 truckloads of furniture for Roger's workmate Marcelina Cretan Decker. We had these things stored in our barn and cellar for her after she left her husband Philip. Now moved out of her 2-room camp type home in Ossipee after divorcing her husband Roger talked our eldest daughter Jennifer and her husband Greg into renting the 2-room camp house for Marcelina for a while to help her out so she could move in with her elderly mother, to get her into a nursing home, sell her mother's house, and buy another home she can move into closer to where she and Roger work. Her husband Philip used to work there with them also, but was let go because of his issues with alcohol. He and Marcelina were in AA together, but she always seemed to have a drink in her hand with booze in it at our cookout and the company get-togethers that I went to. I told Roger about her drinking and that I thought was kind of strange. It didn't seem to matter to him, though. Strangely enough, the day after we moved Marcelina into her new house, the company let her go, too. Our 11-year-old youngest son, Jack, played outside with his friends while the older boys helped their dad load the truck full of Marcelina's things to move her. March 24th, 2000, Roger left us. Today, everything seemed normal and fine, and Roger called me from work like he did every day. This day, he said he had something to talk to me about when he gets home. He has never done that before. We talked just about twice a day on the phone from his work for what seems like forever, and never did he ever call and just say he had to talk to me when he gets home. How curious. I wondered why we would have to wait. Why would he want me to wonder about it all day while he was at work? We talk on the phone at least twice a day, most days, about everything and anything at work, sometimes to run something just to get my opinion. He usually shared what was going on at work. What was so different now? Is it his health I worried about him? Did he find out something from the recent tests he had and felt he needed to be with me to share, but wanted to reach out to me beforehand because he was upset? Within seconds after his call, I had to call him right back, and I begged him to tell me if it had anything to do with his health. We had already been through so much with his heart condition, beginning at age 45. I couldn't stand to think of him having to work all day and wait to get whatever it was off his chest. He assured me it wasn't about his health, but still did not give me a hint. This was crazy, so unlike him. It was a puzzle, but at least I was grateful to know that it wasn't about his health. Of course, during the long day of waiting for him to come home, my imagination took me through some fun ideas, like maybe it was a big, wonderful surprise. But his voice showed something odd, which gave me concern. So again, I began to worry and get anxious. Was it something to do with work? Had something gone wrong? He usually could talk to me about those sort of things on our daily calls. It had to be something he could not tell me about on the work phone. I had to wait till he came home from work to hear those few words out of his mouth of the man I had committed my love and life to for nearly 30 plus years. Once he finally got home, where I had been up in our bedroom waiting, I was sitting in the rocking chair for a while, and he came in and sat in his chair in the corner. And when he was ready to talk, he then said few words, just a firm, "We butt heads about the kids." I thought, "Yeah, so," but I said sarcastically, "Duh," because yes, we sometimes do. As I said, I had been sitting in my rocker for quite a while, waiting for him to come home, worrying about what was up, and I still couldn't sit any longer with my aches and my pains from the accident. So when I said, "Duh," thinking, "Oh, good, nothing serious is going on," I stood up to stand behind the rocker to stretch my back and legs, ready to hear what was on his mind. He knew I had trouble sitting since my accident, so it was strange when he suddenly acted like I was making an arguing mental pose for a fight, and he jumped up from his chair announcing sternly, "I'm leaving. I'm going to stay at my brother Luke's. I need time to think." My mouth dropped open and I just asked, "What?" But he just grabbed a bag like he was furious, threw some clothes in it, and stormed out of the house before I could realize what was happening. This was the end of chapter 10. And as you can tell, it's the beginning of my keeping notes into my journal, filling my journal, starting my journal in order to tell me with my therapy. Next chapter is chapter 11, Shock, Disbelief, and Confusion. So I'll meet with that chapter soon. I hope you're still plugged into this story. You can always look on Amazon for the books yourself. The Spending of a Life's Breath by Amanda Grace Windward. As I said, it's 3 books about the life of this woman in her own words. And I thank you for joining me on these chapters. Talk to you soon.